Okay, all right. So I want to introduce Nate Marshall tonight by talking about Harold's Chicken Shack number 86. Yeah, it's a good poem, which is a poem from the Wild Hundreds published in 2015. And I want to begin with this poem because it is about names and language and what kind of language names are. As such, the poem opens with an epigraph from Kristen Pierce, Harold's CEO and daughter of founder Harold Pierce. The epigraph says, "We're trying to eliminate the shack." From there, it begins. When I went to summer camp, the white kids had a tendency to shorten names of important institutions, make Northwestern University into NU, international relations into IR. Everybody started calling me Nate. Before this, I imagined myself Nathaniel A., maybe even N. Armstead to big up my granddad. I wrote my whole name on everything. Eventually, I started, unintentionally, introducing myself as Nate. It never occurred to me that they could escape the knowing of my name's real length. Now, I want to take a moment to think about what is going on with this shortening, this unintentionality which opens for us its historical aperture. Nothing is deliberated here, no deliberation. The incidents, let's say, are banal. It is this banality of shortcuts, of cutting short, that instructs us out of persons and the deictics of kin, that cuts into the dream of N. Armstead to big up my granddad, cuts him away, that returns the speaker to apprehend his own person from a position of escape, of having escaped, as it were, the intention of his own personhood. In other words, Marshall is asking us to occupy the grammar of erasure, the grammar of the hold, as Christina Sharp teaches, quote, "To be in the wake is to occupy and to be occupied by the continuous and changing present of slavery's as yet unresolved unfolding. To be in the wake, to occupy that grammar, the infinitive, in, for, from, the hold of the ship," end quote. Indeed, what has to be survived here is the quotidian, the unbearably banal disasters that mediate this unsurvival, this ritual exclusion of black being in the wake as a form of consciousness. The poem continues. Most of the kids in my neighborhood couldn't say my name. Mick Daniel, Nick Thaniel, MacDonald shot across the courts like wild heaves toward the basket. The subconscious visual of a chicken shack seems a poor fit for national expansion. Harold's chicken is easier, sounds like Columbus's flag stuck into a cup of coleslaw. Shack sounds too much like home, of poor people, like haven for weary, like building our own. What is this neighborhood, I ask, and why couldn't the kids there say it? What is this scam of not being able to say, to get in one's mouth the specificity of a person? What uncanny palimpsest of Mickey Mouse and Ronald McDonald is making this wild heave across the court? What derangement could be so sweet and so effective as to rearrange the mouth and rupture this singular episteme of the name? Semiotics of the hold. Shack sounds too much like home, says Marshall. Or maybe shack betrays too much the shake, the trembling of the shackles of the poor and of the weary, marooned on this shore still and once more in the night of loveless nights. A cover-up, nothing really, no big to-do, not up for thought, the ordinance of what has to be endured, this unintentionality by which we measure into market and nations delicious deprivations, so that objection is smoothed over, this not for thought that has to be lived, that continues to live, survive, alive and thinking, music in defiance of thought and what it cannot attend, says Marshall, and build anew. Please help me welcome Nate Marshall.
Oh, man. That introduction was more articulate than I am. So, yeah, wherever your expectations are, bring them down like little. Yeah, there it is. There, we got it. Cool. I'm so happy to be here. I want to start. Anybody ever read Harry Potter? You guys read this? All right, cool. In Harry Potter, there's like the thing in the last one where he says, it's written on the snitch, says, I open at the close. Right? If y'all remember that. So I will start with a poem about death. This is called On Caskets. It's after Suji Kwak Kim. 1. Decorating the dead is among the most basic human instincts. To return the borrowed body and acknowledge earth as maker and home. Neanderthals used antlers and flowers. Egyptians had pyramids with peasants buried in the walls they built. Some niggas just get a pine box. Hopefully, you get a hole or flame. Some only get a cold cabinet in the morgue until somebody or nobody claims them as a loss. 2. A permanent fixture on my to-do list is research life insurance plans. Pick a good one with a fair rate and enough money to buy a nice box. 3. Everything gon' be all right this morning. And I contemplate the implication of the statement for the night. Everything in Mississippi is too cruel to bury. I wonder what that means if every body in Chicago has red clay in its lineage. Chief Keef must know in his bones ball like it's no tomorrow from what muddy time capsuled into the South Side ground. 4. When Grandma died, she left a notepad with instructions. The one I remember was, get the casket you want, what you like. Don't be pressured. We wore blue at the service. We matched the box. Its glossy painted ribbons, gold flecked and light. 5. House slaves are responsible for preparing the dead of the master's house. They clean and clothe. They dig the hole. They don't bury any black body, really though, only dispose. One of the concessions won by slave riots was the right to funeral. White folk were confused at how the Africans sometimes wore white, smiled, shouted like joy. They seen funerals, not homegoings. 6. My mother used to say my father loved funerals. He worked graveyard shift and spent the days and weekends visiting bodies, running his finger alongside the box and signing the greeting book. The most decent thing you can do is visit the funeral of someone you didn't know for someone you do. Sister's co-worker, lover's friend, accountant's mother, your aunt's high school rival. 7. Black churches formed burial societies after slavery. Every week, you chipped off a piece of your pay to save for the shovel and the rough hands that will lower you. I know some black folk now buying their plot foot by foot, saving for a final mortgage. 8. It is Dia de los Muertos, and I have a check folded in between the pages of a book about genocide. I will send the money next week to the other side of my family to help bury Grandma's sister. 9. I can't think of a black rapper who hasn't contemplated their own death on record. Ready to die. Life after death. Death is certain. Do or die. Get rich or die trying. Death certificate. This is natural. All my verses mention boxes or holes. 10. Once we lay this brother down in the ground, we got work to do. When I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mama said I'm gonna be the greatest man alive. These children don't expect to live past 30. They come to these funerals and they represent. They put themselves in the place of the person in the casket. Cool. Sorry. I'm a very awkward person, so I am going to read poems so that I don't have to talk to you with my other words. This poem is a ghazal. It's called Fame, Food, and Liquor, which was the liquor store in my neighborhood growing up. We cut down 115th Street for a quicker stroll, past the pastor's house, vacant lot, liquor store, buses pointing out the hood and back. The route every morning goes by the liquor store. The loose Philly blunts hard and dry, the sour mouth washed away by a dull gulp of liquor. Store a honey bun in your fat back pocket. Pray nobody notices your awkward walk. This liquor store sees stumbling often. Out front, the garish stickers fluoresce on the wire windows like winos with liquor store bottles. A small weapon sits behind the counter, hidden by the cigarettes and candy small enough to steal. When the liquor store is locked up, the rolling metals make the window a pastoral, part of our natural habitat. Behold the liquor store, the sugar waters, the Ziploc bag of coins, and Nate's tongue, the color of loose pennies in the liquor store. Cool. How you guys doing? You okay? Good. Can I read newer things? I'm gonna read some new things, cause why not? We're here. This is called Bald Fade, which was the kind of haircut I got when I was a kid. Richard could slice a nigga from fro to Caesar in 17 flat. He, dream genius of diminishing black curl. He used to pick me up Saturday mornings, stop and cop me McDonald's hotcakes. He sat me in the back of the shop while opening, let me eat, and then readied me for the slice. The bald fade, the neat 90s cut up front, the back graphics, the rounded fro, the cornrow lining, the Michael Jordan Daddy Deluxe, my head, a democratic laboratory for nap possibility. My head lived in Richard's hands. Richard was our family friend, haircut on credit close. Hand me candy store money close. Leave me the Curtis comic strips close. First school dance, get me right close. Down the street, close. Tried to fuck my sister, close. Never went to prison, close. Check his sex offender registry listing, close. Map the route to his house, close. Consider repaying his cuts, close. Saw him at the gas station last summer, close. He who made my wave pattern didn't recognize me at the pump after hair loss and decade plus of thickening into man. He would only know me from the way my dome pinches slightly up front, a mark he made with his first fade. Cool. Yeah, man. Poems are crazy. Oh my God, poems are crazy. I've been writing like all these poems sort of about like gender and power and thinking about, just all that foolishness. And so this, I'll read this one. This is called Epicene. I guess you should maybe know. Epicene is like something that contains the properties of sort of both genders or all genders. So like they is an epicene pronoun. A justification of slavery was blacks were the lady of the races. In this logic, the bondage is an overcoat over the puddle. If this the case, call me sis. If this the case, then here is me, not a man but a query. If this the case, then fuck whatever freedom given by this hand. If this the case, the phrase bitch ass nigga is redundant. I don't mean slave logic holds, but I mean all our traps are inventions of the same lazy tongue. What I know is I'm black, sure, and as much man as my pops and his. What I know is most of who held me down has been black women. What I know is sometimes all three of my sisters have a girls' night and I don't have any brothers, but sometimes it's cool and other times I want my invitation. Cool. Let's see. I'll read this one too. This is oh man, I gotta okay, I'm gonna read this one and then we're gonna switch it up because, yeah, all right. I'm whatever. This is called Darla, I Don't Know When to April 7, 2016, and it's a poem after the poet Francine Harris. It's not that I didn't like you. It's more that you were never much of anything to me, except always around. Here you are riding my granddaddy's back outside of our house when y'all showed up drunk again and us kids were the only ones there. You again at Thanksgiving saying something stupid we all ignore and then saying it again. It's not that I didn't like you. It's more that you were never very smart. The type of woman to have to think about the question when asked her own name. The kind of woman to take up with a married man and never seem to feel anything on the subject. It's not that I didn't like you. It's more my mama didn't. Couldn't fucking stand you. It's not her fault, but she couldn't hate daddy for his sins, and so, sin, you gotta hold this one down on his behalf. It's not that I didn't like you. It's more, I barely knew your name. Growing up, you were just hussy or tramp or slut or grandma looking teary-eyed at the deflated speed bag in the basement. It's not that I didn't like you. It's more, I never expected you to die, which is stupid. When I saw you never really lived your own life, you just granddaddy's shadow, same stumble and bad brain, same sweet pride over this selfish boy named Armstead. It's not that I didn't like you. It's more, I just never thought about you for real. It's not that I didn't like you. It's more, I just didn't know you had kids or siblings or a mother. I didn't know you were like a real person and shit. Cool. All right, good. I'll read this. This is like a good change of pace. So this is a poem I wrote for two of my friends when they got married, because they asked me to write a poem, and it's cheaper than buying a vase. No, I'm joking. I think I did also buy them a gift, so shout out to me. All right, no, I'm joking. All right, cool. This is called We Could Not Wait. We could not wait, and so we are here not waiting. We are finding ourselves our own kind of righteous impatience. We could not wait, and so we have jumped and maybe not thought everything through, and maybe worked against our first minds, and maybe ignored the reasonable, rational move. We could not wait, and so we have driven from our homes and flown on our planes and chartered our shuttles and shuffled our schedules, and here we are. 10 days ago, I was not here. 10 days ago, I was planning a barbecue. 10 days ago, I was a world away. 10 days ago, I got a call and an apology. What Michael and Amy told me was, I'm sorry, and you are very busy. And we know it's short notice, and we know you probably can't. And I laughed something hearty and hit yes on the RSVP because we could not wait. And because love is an effort and not just a saying, but sometimes it's a feeling and not a well-laid plan. And because busyness and business are useful, but what is our world without the ability to jump up and clear our calendars and turn off our phones and leave our emails for a moment and say, when love calls, notice is not necessary. Because when love calls, what we do is what we must do. When love calls, you answer the call and you show up. Cool. I think I'll read maybe like two more. Read like two more, and then we'll do questions if there are questions. Oh man, I hope there's. Actually, I don't care. You can ask questions. It's cool. Yeah, I'll read this one. This is called "When I Say Chicago." Yeah. Capital city of the flyover. Crown jewel of the jailhouse. A town in love with its own blood. A blood browned on its own history and funk. This hometown of the riot and the riot gear. The gang and the loitering law. Misfit blocks of dark-skinned cousins and thick-knuckled Slavic uncles who call each other their worst names. What this country know about a rust belt dipped in salt and vinegar and sold as marked up and rustic. Now, my city is the city, not your close enough suburb, not subject to the suppression of tape and the tapping of phones. How can you say anything about our blocks and schools and children that you refuse to see? You do not govern what you do not love. When I say Chicago, I mean that first Haitian cat who could pronounce it right. I don't mean the fresh out of undergrad looking for adventure and a consulting job. When I say Chicago, I mean the stopped and frisked. I mean the euphemism of frisk. I mean the beat down and tight cuff. I mean the drop off in Bridgeport or Mount Greenwood. I mean the lessons taught to an uppity one. When I say Chicago, I mean the lake, and I mean all of it. I mean the candy lady at Rainbow, and the paleta man at Calumet, and the kids careening across the green at Montrose, and the jogger in midwinter daring a death for fitness. When I say Chicago, I mean Cabrini, and Stateway, and Ickes, and Ida. I mean the city I'll tell my kids in the past tense. I mean the rents that sometimes make me mean Georgia or Indiana or Dalton. When I say Chicago, I mean the restaurants with no chairs, just a window and a bulletproof sneeze guard. I mean a Michelin star for all the ethnics slanging their seasoned meats and language. When I say Chicago, I mean my mama's house. That was my grandma's house. I mean the neighborhood. That was our neighborhood because fear left and we said, we'll make a home here and we'll stay. Cool. And I'll finish with this one. This poem is called Finna, which is my favorite word. So I'm finna read y'all this poem. Thank you guys so much. So this one time I was finna say finna in an academic context, and a voice in my head said, shouldn't you be worried about using a word that ain't a word? And I was like, word. And for a long time, that was how I let my life happen. I let my mind tell me a million no's that the world had implanted in me before I even formed questions. I let my power be dulled by my fear of fitting. But I remember a million finnas I avoided to get here. Like the day them dudes jumped me off the bus and I was finna get stomped out like a loose square. Or the day they got to shooting at the park and I was finna catch one like an alley-oop. Or the day my grandma died and my grades dropped and I was finna not finish high school, except I had a praying mama and good teachers and poems to write. I'm thankful for all these finnas that never were. And when I remind myself of who I've always been, I remember why my finna is so necessary. Finna comes from the Southern phrase fixing too, like I come from my Southern grandmothers. And finna is this word that reminds me about everything next. Even when I've been a broken boy, I know I'm fixing to get fixed. I'm finna be better. Every dream I have is a finna away from achievement. Each new love I uncover is a finna I unfold. Every challenge I choose to meet and not let defeat me is a finna I fight for. My hope is like my language, it's like my people. It's black and it's brown and it's alive and it's laughing and it's growing and it's alive and it's learning and it's alive and it's fighting and it's alive and it's finna take on this wide world with a whole slang for optimism. Cool. Thank you, guys.